Hello and welcome back to Shoogly Shed Motors. We've got the XV750, the June Scrambler, back from the Bike Shed Show in London. Tom took it down. The bike was amazingly well received, loads of really nice comments, and yeah, just super big thank you to everyone who made it there, saw the bike, said anything nice about it, or even just silently admired it. It's you know, it makes a lot of this worthwhile. I'm very grateful again to Tom for taking the bike down. Obviously I couldn't make the show, but I know he will have been very excited to show off the project and the work that we've done to it. So yeah, again, huge thank you to anyone who just got to see the bike or said anything nice about it. I really do appreciate that. The next job for the bike is to get it all wired up and running. So we're hoping to take the bike again to a show, festival, the Mallee Mile, which is in Grimthorpe Castle, I think, somewhere like that, in Englandshire. It is in July. It's also kind of off-road festival for motorcycling, in particular sort of custom bikes, that sort of scene. So it'd be really cool to showcase this bike as in its running form at that festival. So like I say, with that in mind, we need to get it wired and running. Obviously I did some of the wiring previous to the bike going to the bike shed. I got just some wires run to basically where they need to go on the bike, but I now need to obviously start tying everything together in order for it to work. The carburetor's obviously got the rebuild, so I'm hoping getting it running shouldn't be too much of an issue. It should be a case of add juice and go, but you know, famous last words. I'm sure there will be a couple of teething issues that we'll need to iron out, but we'll get there in the end. Yeah, today I'm just going to start chipping away at the wiring. I'm wiring an M unit, which I'll show you in a minute, for the first time, and so we'll have a little chat about how that works. But yeah, let's dive into it. Right, Moto Gadget M units. That name should be pretty familiar to most custom bike builders or anyone in that scene. They have obviously been the kind of industry leader in this sort of technology for a number of years now. I've used NWT products in the past, but Tom's got an M unit here that we're going to wire. The main point of these control hubs, if you are not familiar, is to simplify your wiring and also make this the kind of brain of the bike to operate most of the sort of lights and the sort of auxiliary functions that a bike does. Your actual sort of starting wires, so like your battery to solenoid to start a motor, is pretty much remains the same. Likewise for your charging system, then from your alternator or stator to your regulator rectifier back to the battery, excuse me, that all more or less stays the same. These, like I say, really do control most of your kind of auxiliary stuff and your lights and that sort of thing. So with that in mind, we're not using some of the capabilities that this has. You could use a momentary button setup, but we're using actual like switchgear handlebar buttons. You'll see me fit them previous. And then we also have this little breakout box here. That is essential for using the Moto scope that we've put on it, which is Moto Gadget's sort of speedometer heads-up display kind of thing. You need that little device here for basically taking the signals from the rest of the bike and translating it into signals that the Moto scope can read. Yeah, it's not as complicated as it sounds. It should actually be a lot more simple than a regular sort of wiring layout. And like I say, it reduces the number of wires that you have running around the bike, which for a custom setup is a huge advantage. Trying to hide wires is part of one of the big jobs really when wiring these sorts of bikes, trying to make it look neat and not have wires running everywhere. So yeah, I've run obviously a lot of the cables down from the top. I need to pin out some of the connectors. I need to figure out some of the colours from the switchgear I mentioned and figure out where they're going and make sure I get the right colours to the right buttons. But yeah, a little like some of the wiring videos I've done in the past, a lot of it is just crimping connectors and joining things or lengthening cables, and that's the bread and butter of this sort of thing. So without further ado, probably what I'll do is I'll get my multimeter out. I'll start figuring out which wires for these switch gears do different functions. Annoyingly, they didn't come with any kind of wiring diagram, so I'm flying blind in that regard. But it shouldn't be too complicated with the multimeter on continuity. That should be easy to figure out. And then combine that kind of thing with the factory wiring diagram and then the Moto Gadget and Moto M unit. We should get there. Right, as with a lot of aftermarket bike parts, there's issues. So the switch gears that we got don't come with a wiring diagram. So all I have is a bunch of colourful wires that I don't know what any of them do. So any motorcycle builder or motorcycle owner, maintenance enthusiast should own a multimeter. A multimeter, obviously, if you don't know what it is, it can basically test a load of different electrical functions, voltages, amperages, and continuity, which is what I'm going to use it for just now. Continuity, basically in the most basic terms, it just basically means there is a connection. Basically. There's a connection, so that means that there is current going, or that there's flow going through the wires. So if I've got a crocodile probe on one and just a normal pointy probe on the other, but if I point this or I connect them, we'll get a beep. So that beep basically means that there's a connection all the way around this circuit. So if we take, for instance, the earth points on the bike, so I've got an earth point here and one up here, we also get the beep. So that basically means that there is a connection between those two earth points, and the whole frame is earthed, so that should make sense. If you connect, say, I don't know, I've got a battery wire down here, connect that there and down here, I've got continuity. So continuity is useful for figuring out these colours and which button does which colour. Just because what I can do is connect up one end to one wire and one end to another, operate some of the buttons and see if anything works. So I have started already and done a few of them, and I'm just kind of noting down on my pad of paper here which colour corresponds to which button. So for instance, over here we have, right, so I'm going to put my crocodile clip on the white one, and this is the common indicator cable that I've figured out. So all I did was put my probe onto that one, operate the indicator. I've got continuity for the right turn and nothing for the left, so that's my right turn indicator cable. And then I think it was the orange, I've got continuity for left, nothing for right, or the neutral position there. So that is my left turn indicator. So that's basically it. You just start to sort of touch cables, operate different buttons. Let's put my high beam on, for instance. There's, continuity there between the blue and the brown. So that's my high beam switch. It's not very complicated, but it's a bit time consuming, and like I say, handwritten chart can be very useful just to note out exactly what each wire is doing, and then we can go ahead and start to connect them up to different parts of the wiring loom. Yeah, continuity is just, it's a most basic skill for wiring, but it really is exceptionally useful for diagnostics as well. One of the big advantages of the M unit is that you can ground components sort of in situ. So you could have, your headlight grounded up at the top of the bike and your tail light grounded at the bottom of the bike. And it saves you running ground cables up and down the bike constantly. So I have a lot of little ring terminals for my grounds situated in various different parts of the bike. And what I'm doing here is making a pigtail joint which is grounded to the M unit itself, and it's going to feed 4 components at the back. It's going to feed the tail light, the rear indicators, the M lock, and also the starter solenoid that I've got here. So I'm basically putting on a double bullet connector. Once these little bullet connectors are on each of these, I'll have 4 ground points, and then we can effectively plug in with corresponding bullet connectors each of our 4 components. Then all they need is the live feeds, and the live feeds will be given from the M unit itself. So the M unit has the like left turn, right turn, lights, brake light, all that kind of thing. So that kind of simplifies a lot of the wiring. So by making up these little earth pigtails, you can plug in the components where they are without having to run lots and lots of earth cables. Yeah, just another kind of neatness solution. Right, M unit. Let's do, for instance, the brake lights. So we've got brake in and brake out. So brake in is from your brake switches. Obviously on a motorcycle you've got your front brake, which has a brake switch, and your foot brake, which has a brake switch. So this brown wire and this brown wire, this one comes from the handlebar brake switch, and this one comes from the foot. So both of these will need to go into brake in, because that's your input. That's basically saying that when you press the brake or pull the brake, you're giving a signal to the M unit to then put power to the brake out, which will be going to our brake light at the back of the bike. So these are going to go in there, and then brake out will be one of these guys. So my brake light is now connected up to the brake out portion of the M unit, and we are being very fancy and using the RFID M lock, which I have discreetly mounted under the tailpiece here. So if I wave it over here, M unit turns on, and then it's operate a brake switch, and that's our brake light working. Obviously as I turned it on as well, we got our kind of marker tail light too. So brake working, and then if I wave the RFID over it again, bike turns off. Pretty cool bit of kit, to be honest. Definitely sort of 21st century tech. But yeah, for the M unit, that's effectively it. You just have ins and outs. So your ins are your switches and your outs are the loads, the components. So I'm just going to keep going through the bike and connecting up the M unit parts. It's fairly straightforward, like I say. So yeah, just be cutting wires and screwing them down and running them to the components, and then yeah, we'll see where we get to. Right, I've spent the last couple of days just basically doing the wiring. I've never really done an in-depth video on wiring, but I suppose so many custom bikes are just quite different and quite unique, and the wiring systems are all quite different, so it would be hard to do that. And obviously for the M unit, it's been about for years and there's loads of videos online. Revival Cycles do some really good series on the M unit, as does Classic Octane, Tyler. He does some really good ones on it. Yeah, I'm not going to basically go over old ground, and I actually used those videos myself for a couple of little pointers when wiring this all. So I suppose it's not the most in-depth or educational wiring video, but what I've done is I've wired everything except from the regulator rectifier, which I haven't got yet, and also the horn. Just two things that we haven't ordered yet. Well, we have ordered, but they're not arrived. So the regulator rectifier is going to sit here. There's a gap under the tank that's going to sit quite nicely and hidden up in there, but still get enough airflow to keep the thing cool. But all the auxiliary stuff, all the lights and the gauge and things all work now, so I thought I might stick the main fuse back in. When I wire, I keep the fuse out just so there's no power going to anything, so that while I wire, if grounds and lives touch, I don't blow anything up. But yeah, we'll whack this little 30 amp fuse back in and go through some of the features. So all I've got is just a normal kind of blade fuse holder, which I'm going to stick this fuse into, like that. It's just a main fuse. Some of the Moto Gadget componentry, like for instance the Motoscope Pro up here, and also the M-Lock, which I've put the reader under the tailpiece, they need protected with 1 amp fuses, just because they're very sensitive electrical equipment, and any kind of surge or power or amperage that's over the load will blow them up. So there is also down in here a little inline 1 amp fuse, and also up here we've got an inline 1 amp fuse and another one here, just protecting the Moto Gadget parts. Don't get too het off about this little bundle of wires. I've yet to kind of sort of neaten all this up, and again, it's all going under the tank. Tom bought me a label printer, so I felt like I should use it, and I've put a lot of the corresponding wire colours up here, and a lot of them also have little tags on them too, to tell you basically what they go to and what they do. So hopefully if anyone ever does any work on this, it's not myself, it should be fairly straightforward as to what the wires are doing. Anyway, I'm waffling on. We get our RFID tag, and when I wave it over the tailpiece, you'll see the M unit light up. There we go. So the M unit did its little startup dance there, and the scope has turned on too. And we've also got marker lights and a tail light with the plate light under it. So all those things turn on effectively when you turn the bike on, which is nice. Motoscope, obviously we've got in neutral just now. If I just push the gear lever, you'll see it come out of neutral, out of neutral, back into neutral. So that's all working. The speed sensor, I've mounted that down on the side of the disc as well, so that should hopefully be able to calibrate once we get the bike running and rolling. Switches, right, obviously horn, I've not got it yet, but this is going to be a high beam switch, so you'll see that high beam go on and off again. The high beam is this absolute stoater of a hella light under here, and then on the right hand switch I've wired in this button here to be just your normal headlights, so obviously marker lights and then your dips. What else have we got? Just for some cool jazzy feature, we've got a little button under here that wasn't being used for anything. These headlights have an orange halo, so I thought, why not wire that in to be little orange halos for whatever reason, don't know, just because I could. Over here we've got our turn signals, so if we go left to turn, see it's flashing on the scope, and the turn signal is flashing there and there, and again just flick it over to the right, we've got it flashing here and over here. A little kind of fun thing, right? So the M unit actually tells you what output is currently receiving load. So that's our turn right, is currently got an input from the switch, and the output is going to the lights. And then it also has a cool feature which I have programmed that means that the light keeps flashing for another few seconds and then will cancel itself, so that you can't accidentally leave your indicator on, which I think is a neat little feature that this unit has. We also have a brake light, like I showed you earlier. I have programmed it to be a flashing brake light, so when you focus there, when you pull the brake, press the brake lever, it flashes. Just makes you a little bit more visible that you're braking, prevent you getting rear-ended. Is there anything else I've not covered? I think that's more or less it. The rest of it is just ignition and charging systems. So with regards to lights and kind of auxiliaries, that's pretty much what the bike's got. And then, yeah, I'll need to obviously wire the horn in when I get it, and the regulator rectifier, but the wiring is more or less complete. All I need to do now is just neaten all the wires up a little bit, tuck them in, just sort of straighten this kind of bird's nest out a little bit. It's not too bad, and again, the tank goes on over this, so you won't see any of this. But yeah, it's a bit of a mission wiring a bike, but the M unit does kind of simplify some aspects of it. Not all aspects of it. I'm not going to sing its praises too much. It's not infallible. There are some issues with it, and I've had to do a few workarounds, but it's all online. All these workarounds are fairly easy to find. There's loads of Reddit threads and things like that covering, you know, issues that people have had with these units and what they've managed to do separately. Like for instance, the switches that Tom's bought, the headlight and the high beam switches are latching switches. The latching switches don't really work with an M unit. The M unit prefers momentary switches, so kind of on off rather than sort of click on, click off. So the headlight and the high beam are actually not being used through the M unit. It's just traditionally wired through just lives and grounds. So yeah, there's aspects of this that are really useful and aspects of it that obviously I've kind of had to work around because it's not being used to its full potential, I should maybe say. If you're using little momentary switches like what I have on the XJR, this comes into its own a bit more. So to turn the bike off, again, obviously we've got our RFID M-lock. Just do that, and the bike turns off again. So yeah, effectively that's the wiring done. Just need to plug in a regulator rectifier, or make up a connection for it, but all the wires for it are run to the right place. And then I've got a purple wire here that will go to the horn when that arrives as well. So the wiring is more or less done. The next kind of step is getting the thing actually running. That's not going to be in this episode, unfortunately. It's probably merits an episode in itself, the first startup, but I thought this was a good little rundown of how I'm wiring this, and obviously my first time using an M unit and a couple of opinions that I have on it. But yeah, this bike has caused waves, I should say, on the social media channels, and I've had so much positive feedback and loads of people reaching out who've seen it at the Bike Shed and also just online and things, and how much they like it. So that makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside, which is nice. And then hopefully, like I say, when I get it running, that'll be another big milestone for it, and we'll be able to get it out for some riding footage and some nice photos on location somewhere. And then also, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to take this to the Mali Mile festival as well. So yeah, loads in store for the future of this bike, and hopefully the next time I see you, we will be attempting a first start. Anyway, as usual, please do give me a like, leave me a comment, and make sure you subscribe to the Shoogly Shed channel. I appreciate all the support, and I will hopefully see you next time. Take care. Goodbye.